DreAllDay.com.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unified philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is, we are on part 2 of our 2-part mini series here, how to be a high value woman, which I've already given you the background on this and explained out exactly where this comes from, why, and where we're going with it in yesterday's episode. If you didn't listen to it, do yourself a favor and do the world a favor by enriching yourself and listening to that episode. Now let's pick up right where we left off on point number 4, how to be a high value woman. Number 4, low sexual history. Yes, this matters. Now, I've heard some people, I've seen some videos where people are doing street interviews and things like that, talking to random people. Does this matter? Does it count? Asking women and asking men, and I will give a definitive answer. Hell, yes, it counts. Yes, it counts. The sexual history of a woman matters to a man. Even though she's not with that guy or those guys anymore, she's with you now. That is true. Who you've been with before does matter. All right. The phrase I like to use when talking to men about women is show me the Carfax. Now, all y'all, show me the Carfax. Y'all heard the commercial, right? The Carfax. Show me the Carfax. Show me the detailed history of this vehicle. I want to know what happened to it. Has it been in an accident? Has it been destroyed before? Has it been completely wrecked? Are these refurbished parts? Show me the Carfax. Okay. And this applies both publicly and privately when I say the sexual history of a woman. When I say it applies publicly and privately, let me explain to you exactly what that means. This is not just about how many men a woman has slept with. That it is about that, but it's not just that. Let me go further. It's about your general reputation and the way you present yourself to the world / have presented yourself to the world. What does that mean? In other words, as a woman, if you claim to have a low, as we say, body count, meaning the number of men you have been with you're claiming it to be a relatively low number, as they say, yet you still have an OnlyFans page, or you have your ass out on the internet as a part of your marketing package, or you're an Instagram ass model, as we talked about, and I believe that was episode 3105, but let me double check myself. That was episode number 3203. 3203, if you're an Instagram ass model, or you've been a stripper in your past, or any other things that, if known about, could make your reputation look a certain way sexually, that still hurts your image in the eyes of a man when it comes to being a high value female right now. Why? Because your sexual past makes you look a certain way, regardless of what you're doing in the present. All right, so you used to be a porn star and you did 300 different movies with 300 different men, maybe some men more than once. And now you're no longer in the porn industry. That was 10 years ago. And now you want to be a housewife and get married. Great. Thing is, there are men who, when they see that history, they're going to say, no, you are disqualified, even though you're pretty, even though you seem to be submissive, even though you are willing to get on my program and you're willing to follow me, you're willing to submit to me and everything else on this list. You seem to check all those boxes. Your sexual history says to me, no, I'm not interested. Just because your background is your background. Just because of that. This is the way it works in the application process, ladies and gentlemen. One thing can destroy the whole application process. It can be one thing that you did, one thing that you said, one thing that's off that could cause the hiring committee to say, nope, not them, not you. It's the same thing when it comes to this. I told you, you got to check every box to be high value. If you have a questionable sexual history, this will hurt you. There are women, and I live in South Florida. And in South Florida, there are women who are made themselves pretty well known, at least in my eyes, from walking around the neighborhood or neighborhoods, plural, in such a way that they are being sexually suggestive just by walking around. Now, how can you be sexually suggestive just by walking around? Well, it's what you wear. It's how you're wearing it. And it's the fact that it appears to me, it has appeared to me, I've seen it, I'm saying this from my own experience, it's appeared to me that there are certain women walking around dressed certain ways, knowing that they can go certain places and they're going to get certain amounts of eyeballs on them, and they want everybody to see them because they're advertising themselves. And again, I'm not knocking anybody's hustle. What I am saying, however, and the reason I'm bringing this up is that woman walking around like that, okay, I see what you're advertising. This plays a role in your sexual history, even if I have no idea how many men you slept with. I don't know what you're doing behind closed doors. I see what you're doing out in the open. This plays a role in your sexual history because you are presenting yourself as an object, and you're objectifying yourself with the way that you're presenting yourself, and that matters. That matters. Because that tells me, okay, if you're doing this out in the open for me to see, I have no idea what else you're doing, or what you were doing before I ever saw you before, and what you were before I ever saw you, period, and what you would do behind closed doors, and with whom you've done it. Because I guarantee I ain't the only person to have seen this. I'm not the first person to have seen it. And you know I'm not the first person you've shown yourself to. This is telling me something. This is giving me some inferences about the type of person you are. Ladies and gentlemen, books are judged by their covers. Do you not agree with this? I've told you all this many times. When I did the episode on why I started wearing suits more often, episode number 2245. And then I did an update, the keys to wearing suits, episodes 3238 and 3239. That one of the reasons I started wearing a suit is because I was getting tired of people looking at me and assuming that I was a professional athlete. I used to be, but I'm not an athlete anymore. That was 10 years ago. And being an athlete, that is. And I would rather the conversation start with someone assuming that I'm a businessman, because that's what I am. So I put on the uniform of a businessman. Now people assume I'm a businessman. Now people assume I'm a lawyer, or I'm in finance, or I'm a CEO of a company. That's usually what people say to me when they try to guess what I do. Nobody guesses I'm an athlete when I'm walking around in a suit, unless or if they know me from YouTube or something like that, then that doesn't count as a guess because they know who I am. But someone who doesn't know me looks at me and nobody says you're an athlete when I'm dressed in the uniform of a businessman. When I'm just in the uniform of an athlete, I still get people on the weekends or in the evenings when I'm out with my son, because I change clothes because he likes to go out in parks and stuff like that. I still get people assuming I'm an athlete when they talk to me, when they see me dressed in casual clothing. So the way that you present yourself gives people inferences about what you're about and who you are. So even if your sexual history is very low, ladies, but you're presenting yourself in a certain way, certain people are going to look at that and assume that your sexual history may be different than what it actually is. And does that perception matter? Yes. Yes, it matters. Even if it was a long time ago, it doesn't matter. Yes. Okay, when it comes to being a high value female, these things all count. And high value females value discretion. They value modesty, especially in public settings and especially on social media. Especially in public settings and especially on social media. Now I'll tell you something else. Now, I've worked at many fitness facilities. I don't mean not worked out. I worked out at many fitness facilities. I've literally had a job at a lot of fitness facilities. And I'll tell you something interesting. In the summer of 2005, I used to work at this gym called Bally Total Fitness. And I'll tell you how things worked at Bally. Now, at this time, I'm 23 years of age, single man, and I'm really focused on making it as a basketball player, but I'm still a 23-year-old single man, not too far removed from my college experiences where we pretty much let me speak for myself, did know whatever was available to me. Let's put it that way. And I remember working at Bally, and the way it would work is if someone came into the gym, and I mastered my process for this, someone would come into the gym and they're interested, and I would shake their hand, introduce myself, and I would take them on a tour of the facility. And I had a whole process for how I did it. I had a process for how I explained every aspect. It was like a sales call, basically. It was pretty much a sales call. But you're walking around the facility and showing them equipment while you're doing the sales call. And depending on who the person was, and depending on what they wanted to work on. So if it was a man who was older and he said, I want to work on, it would be common answers all the time. So it'd be a man saying something like, I want to get 6-pack abs, or it would be something around the stomach. Usually the man it was some issue with his stomach, his midsection that he wanted to deal with, or he just wanted to get bigger muscles. It was one of the two. So I knew, in the process of taking them on the tour, I would show both the men and the women the same things. But if it was a man, I'll tell you what I would do with the man in a second. And then a woman, if I was talking to a woman, the thing that they wanted to deal with was almost always the same things. It was, I want to lose some fat, / I want to tighten my body up, / I want to deal with this extra weight on the back of my arms, the back of the tricep fat that the woman would talk about, or it'd be some stomach stuff, or I just want to tighten up my ass or my thighs. That was usually the answer almost every single time a woman came in. Or if she was already in shape, she was just like, I just want to keep, maintain what I already got. And if it was a man already in shape, he would say maintain what I already got. So those who said they want to maintain, usually they already knew they wanted to join. I could sell them pretty easily. But the ones who their bodies looked like they hadn't been in the gym in a while, I had to sell them and I had to show them something. So here's what I would do is I would take them around on the tour. We would get to the part of the floor where not the workout equipment, but the weights and stuff were, and the machines. And if it was a man, I would take him somewhere such as the chest machine if he wanted to work on his chest, or show him some ab exercise if he wanted to work on his abs, like make him do the lifting his knees up while holding himself up on, I don't even know what that apparatus is called, and just show them how, and I would put my hand, like make your knees touch my hand, and show them how difficult it was for them to do that, just to demonstrate to them how bad of a shape they were in and how bad they needed the gym. This is all part of the sales pitch. And I would always end the tours by taking them in the cardio area and getting them on the treadmill and turn the speed up on the treadmill within this course of about a minute or two to show them how out of fucking shape they were. So by the time they sat down in the office with me to sell the membership, they were still feeling the cardiovascular burn of trying to run on that treadmill. And me, subconsciously, they already understood they needed the gym. Then I was selling the gym membership. This is all part of my hustle. And I was the top salesperson in that location in the summer of 2005. I'm telling you all that to tell you this. When a woman would come in and she would say anything around, I want to tighten up my thighs or my ass or something like that. And I would say about 70% of the women who came in would say that. I don't know if they were saying it because they were talking to me, if they would say that to a woman, or they said it to all the men who were selling memberships there. I don't know, but that's the answer. About 70% of the time, a woman would say something about her ass or her thighs. At some point, that would come into the conversation. So I would take them around to, you look at Instagram these days, you see the kind of machines that women film themselves being on. The hip machines where they're opening and closing their legs, and the ass machines where they're kicking back to work the hamstrings and the glutes. So we had machines like that in Valley Total Fitness. And I would take women to those machines, and they would get on the machine and they would use the machine. And I would tell them, make sure you're in this position. Like, can you feel that in this part of your body, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, I was doing this. And this is part of the sales pitch. Okay, I'm a salesperson, very professional one. And I remember one time there was a woman who came in there, really pretty girl, light skinned girl. I wouldn't remember her name, but I remember taking her around and she had said the same thing. I want to work on my ass. I want to work on my hips, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember I brought her around to that same machine. I had brought 50 women to the same machine. They all would get on the machine. They would use the machine. And they would like the feeling of the machine because they could feel it was working the area that they felt like they needed to work. And again, this was part of my pitch because I want to show them that we have the equipment to help you do the very thing you said you wanted to do. And this is how we sell gym memberships. Again, this is a professional process, ladies and gentlemen. And I remember this girl said, I showed her the machine and she looked at it and she was about to get on it because I was telling her to get on the machine. And she was like, I'm not going to have my ass in the air. That's what she said. She said, I'm not going to have my ass in the air. And I told you all that story to tell you this. All right, see, a high value woman, she has this level of discretion. And she's like, no, I'm not doing that. Now, it's not like she would never use the machine. I don't think that was what she was saying. I don't think she was saying, I'm never going to use the machine. She didn't say it in so many words. What she was saying was, Dre, you're a man and it looks like you're a heterosexual man and you're trying to tell me to use this machine. I'm not going to be using this machine with you standing there looking at, I'm not doing that. Now, maybe she used the machine after she joined the gym, but she wasn't going to do it while she was standing there right in front of me. And what she was saying, what she was demonstrating was discretion and modesty. That's what she was doing. She was demonstrating discretion and modesty, especially in a public setting. And this is before we had video cameras on our phones. Mind you, this is 2005. So we had phones, but not cameras on the phones. So she was saying, I'm just not going to do that display right now in front of you. And this is a example of a woman displaying some form of modesty and discretion. There are women out there who, I think most of the women who are listening to the show have been to a swimming pool or a beach before, but that doesn't mean you're going to post photos from all different angles of yourself in a bathing suit on your social media account, even though you went to the beach, even though you had a good time, even though there are photos. You're not going to post every photo from every angle, showing every angle of your body, because there's a certain level of modesty and discretion that you want to maintain and not put it out on the internet. That is part of this point that I'm making right here. Moving on to point number 5. Today's topic, once again, is what makes for a high value woman. This is part 2 of 2. Number 5, willing to fit into a man's program. Now, this rhymes with what we talked about in an earlier point in yesterday's episode. A high value woman does not show up to a relationship with some approach of my way or the highway, which is a funny thing to even think about a woman saying that to a man. But women don't show up to a relationship with this mentality, my way or the highway. And there are men out there who show up this way. And if you want to get with a man who you like and he has this approach, then again, you're willing to submit to his plan. So he shouldn't even have to say this to you. A woman is willing to relocate. She is willing to adapt. She is willing to follow a man's vision and plan and aligning herself with him as a teammate, not a competitor. A high value woman is willing to do these things. The man wants to move, she moves. If the man needs her to make an adaptation, she makes it. And she's willing to follow that man's vision and his plan because you believe that he's going to be what he is going to be, or keep being what he's being, or he's going to become what he's working on. Because again, what we talked about yesterday, willing to get behind a man even before he's reached his level of success. You're willing to get behind that, and you see yourself as a teammate with the man. You're not a competitor with the man. Napoleon Hill talked about how in his years of building up what became the Ford Motor Company, Henry Ford's first mastermind partner was his wife. And his wife, he would sit down with her every night after he got done doing his thing, working, and talk to her about the problems and the challenges and what he was working on and how things were going. And she was the one who was the soft landing place for him. And she was the teammate cheering him along so he could go out there and do his thing as best he could every single day as he built what became a legendary company. She was a teammate, not a competitor. Now, this does require that a man actually has a plan. And he has to actually know where he's going so a woman can follow. So ladies, I'm not telling you to follow behind a man who has no plan and doesn't know where he's going. You can't follow someone who doesn't have a plan. This is the reason why I emphasized in yesterday's episode that you can get behind a man before he has become the success that he's aiming to become, but he has to actually know where he's going. He doesn't know where he's going, you can't follow him. So a man doesn't know where he's going, he isn't even in the conversation of looking at the woman who we describe as high value. So the woman I'm describing as high value is in the eyes of a man who actually has some semblance of a plan of being or becoming or remaining high value himself, which means there must be a plan and a strategy. Everybody understand? High value man knows where he's going, or a man who's on his way to being high value knows where he's going. So assuming that these things are in place, that's what these points are about in yesterday's and today's episode. A high value woman is going to go with what a man wants to do rather than trying to insert her plan above his plan. So if the plans clash, a high value woman is willing to drop what she's doing to follow what the man is doing. Plain as that. Simple as that. Excuse me. Point number 6. Today's topic, once again, is how to be a high value female. Number 6 is a feminine presentation. A feminine presentation. This one, if you hit all the other points that I've shared so far here, then this one is actually pretty simple. Feminine presentation is easy if you did 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. What does this mean? But there's actually a little bit more to this than just that. I almost forgot. So dressing well is one. Speaking well is another. In other words, you know how to tailor your language. Even though you may be the most ghetto bitch from the deepest hood of hoods, or you may be some white trash person from a trailer park, you know how to talk in a proper and formal way and in a proper and formal tone, using proper and formal language in certain settings to make your man look good because you are with him. Even if you're ghetto as fuck at home, you know how to conduct yourself properly in certain company to, again, make your man look good and be a compliment to your man just by your very presence. This is the feminine presentation. Dress well, speak well, carrying yourself with elegance. What does that word elegance mean? Let me give a definition of this word because I want all of us to be on the same page. Definition of elegance is refinement, grace, and beauty in movement, appearance, or manners. Refinement, grace, and beauty. What does that mean? That means you know how to conduct yourself in certain spaces, even if that's not the space you are actually from. You know how to conduct yourself in that space. You go to a black tie affair, white tablecloth, black tie affair. You know how to conduct yourself in such a way that you don't look like a fish out of water in there as a woman next to a man. Because at that affair, you're probably at that affair because of the man, and the people who are also there are looking at you to judge him. And you help him look better by being there. That's elegance. As a high value woman, you must have this capability. If you don't have this capability, then you can't be there. Ladies, be careful of any markings or tattoos on your bare arms, neck, face. Why? Because at these type of affairs, you're going to have to wear a strapless dress. What do you have on your arms? All right. That could affect how the man you're with is looked at by his peers because he brought you with him. And if he sees that and now he's like, I can't bring you with me, then guess what? He might decide he can't be with you because he can't bring you to these places. And it might only be twice a year, but those 2 times a year made a big deal. They're a big deal when it comes to his career and whether he advances or he doesn't. So you can't be with him because you would hurt his chances. Do you understand how these small things can make a big difference? So you understand the power of being a woman and not trying to outman a man. You notice that this has come up many times in this series. You understand the value of being a woman and not trying to beat a man at being a man. So you're not carrying yourself with masculine traits or masculine attitudes. You do not overtalk men. Don't do this. Never overtalk a man. That's a masculine thing to do. Men overtalk each other, but women do not overtalk men. Don't do that. If a man interrupts you and starts overtalking, let him say what he got to say, then you talk. That's feminine. You shouldn't even have to be taught that if you're a feminine woman. A feminine woman doesn't need to be taught to not overtalk a man because you're not going to win a shouting match with a man, generally speaking. You're not being argumentative. You are not being combative. You're not trying to be domineering. And you're not trying to assert yourself in every engagement with a man. All right, those are all masculine things to do. This is what men do. Men do all these things that I just said. They overtalk each other. We argue with each other. We get combative. We get domineering, and we try to assert ourselves. That's what men do. But you ain't a man. You're a woman. So don't do those things because that's what men do. Now, if you do those things, I'm seeing a man in you, even though you're in a woman's body. If you're a high value woman and you go to a public event with your man, listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. I want to give you an image here. Okay. Your presence next to that man should enhance the way that the man is seen by everybody in the room because he walked in the room with you. So they already respected the man at a certain level. They respected the man at a level 85, but then he comes to this event. Nobody's ever seen the woman that he's with. So they invite him to an event where he has to bring a woman. He brings a woman, and the woman he brings is you. Now, instead of seeing him as a level 85, the next day he goes to work, he's seen at a level 95. Why? They already knew who he was. He didn't do anything different. He went from an 85 to a 95 because the woman he brought with him makes him look even better in their eyes because you're you. That's what a high value woman does. That can actually encapsulate everything I've said in these 6 points. When your man brings you somewhere and the people that already know him meet you, they're like, damn, he is winning even more than I thought he was winning because look at that girl he's got. Look at that woman he's got. Look at that wife he's got. Look at the mother of his children. Wow. He's even better than I thought he was. I knew he was good, but I didn't know it was that good. Because somehow, some way, he was able to get that woman to follow him. Now, what you don't want is for him to go from an 85 to a 75 because you were there. Carrying yourself in a masculine way, not having grace or elegance, not knowing how to conduct yourself, not knowing how to hold a conversation, not knowing how to play the supporting role as opposed to the leading role. These are all things that keep it real, your mothers should have taught you as a high value woman. If your mother didn't teach you, then you can get with a woman out here who teaches this stuff because there's teachers and coaches for everything these days. Just to keep it real with you. This is the reason why, and when you get into a relationship with another person, often you're looking at their parents. All right, who's their mother, who's their father? If you know who they are, because that'll give you a good insight into who they might become. Is this generally true? Yes. Doesn't mean it's impossible if you didn't have something that you can't develop it, but it does take some effort. So again, the image. You being next to him should make him look even better than he looked before they saw you. That's all about your energy and your presentation. That's it. Your energy and your presentation. Doesn't matter your resume, doesn't matter your background. I mean, they might ask about it, but really it's your energy and presentation. Helps even more if you're a woman of actual substance and you can hold a conversation. You can bring something other than just your looks to a conversation, even better. But if all you have is your looks and you can pretty much you can small talk, you can survive in small talk, that still will make the man look better. But if you can actually converse, oh, even better. You can bring that man up to a 100 just because of your presence. So while you marinate on that, let's recap today's class. This is part 2 of our 2-part mini series, How to Be a High Value Woman. Number 4, low sexual history. This applies both publicly and privately, meaning how many men you've actually slept with is a private, and publicly, how do you present yourself? Do you present yourself as a sexual object, or you present yourself as a classy, elegant woman? Does this matter? Yes. Number 5, willing to fit into a man's program. Again, this is part of submission. You're following the man's program. He says, we're going to move here. He says, this is what we're going to do. He says, this is the way I'm going. I need you to support me. Then you support, period. If you don't believe the man's going to be successful in what he's asking you to support, then you shouldn't be with the man. If you don't believe he's going to be successful, don't follow him. Get with a different man. And number 6, feminine presentation. Dressing well, speaking well, carrying yourself with elegance. If you walk into the room with that man in a space of people who already know him, they should think of him more highly after they meet you than they did before they met you. They already knew him. They just think more highly of him because he came with you, not less of him because he came with you. And by the way, there's no neutral. So either they're going to think more of him, they're going to think less of him based on you. And your aim is always make him look even better than he does look just because you're with him. All right. And that's all in how you show up. All that said, folks, now we know how to be a high value man. We also know how to be a high value woman. Let's make sure that you are doing high value things. You're running a high value business and you're producing high value results in your career by going to workonyourgameuniversity.com, have me as your coach, and get into our programs. That's workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre, all